Cape Coral was once marketed as Florida's paradise. Sun-soaked streets, sparkling canals, and booming neighborhoods. But how did one of America's fastest-growing cities turn into the nation's worst housing market almost overnight? At one point, Cape Coral was adding over 20,000 new residents every single year, making it one of the top 10 fastest-growing cities in the U.S. by population growth. Developers poured in, building sprawling subdivisions and waterfront properties, all under the promise that Cape Coral was destined for endless prosperity. But here's the shocking reality. The same city once branded as a booming paradise is now being labeled the worst housing market in America. According to recent reports, Cape Coral has dropped to the very bottom of Realtor.com's Housing Hotness Index, ranking 123rd out of 123 mid-sized cities in July 2025. That's a catastrophic reversal for a market that not long ago was one of Florida's crown jewels. The data paints an alarming picture. The median home price in Cape Coral has fallen to $361,000, down 7.7% year over year, according to Redfin. Sales are down nearly 6%, with just 608 homes sold in May compared to 645 the year before. Worse yet, homes are sitting unsold for an average of 76 days, up sharply from just 59 days a year ago. What was once a red-hot seller's market has quickly cooled into a buyer's market, where buyers have the leverage to negotiate steep discounts. For longtime market watchers, the warning signs feel eerily familiar. Cape Coral was once ground zero during the 2008 housing crash. When foreclosure rates exploded, prices collapsed by more than 50%, and entire neighborhoods sat abandoned. The question in 2025 is simple but unsettling. Are we witnessing history repeat itself? This video will dig deep into the rise, fall, and possible future of Cape Coral's housing market. From the speculative mania of the boom years to today's painful slowdown, we'll uncover why this Florida dream town might be on the brink of another housing disaster, and what that means for buyers, sellers, and investors in the months ahead. To understand why today's downturn feels so alarming, we first need to rewind and examine the meteoric rise of Cape Coral. Because this city's housing story has always been one of extremes: extreme growth, extreme demand, and extreme vulnerability. Cape Coral wasn't just another Florida suburb. It was a phenomenon. Built on a network of more than 400 miles of man-made canals, it earned the nickname the Waterfront Wonderland. Waterfront property was plentiful, relatively affordable compared to Miami or Naples, and investors saw an opportunity. By the early 2000s, Cape Coral became one of the fastest-growing cities in America, with its population exploding past 200,000 residents. Families moved in, retirees bought their dream homes, and investors, many from out of state, snapped up houses to flip or rent. The demand drove prices through the roof. Between 2000 and 2006, the average home price in Cape Coral nearly doubled, fueled by cheap credit, speculative buying, and the belief that prices could only go up. Construction boomed. Entire neighborhoods were built seemingly overnight, and developers rushed to meet the flood of buyers lining up for their slice of Florida paradise. At the peak of the frenzy, homes sometimes sold within days of hitting the market, often with multiple offers above asking price. But this rapid ascent came with cracks beneath the surface. Cape Coral was particularly vulnerable because so much of its growth was speculative. Many buyers weren't locals planning to live there, they were investors hoping to flip properties quickly for profit. Mortgage lenders, eager to cash in on the frenzy, offered risky loans with adjustable rates, balloon payments, and little to no income verification. This set the stage for disaster. And when the 2008 financial crisis hit, Cape Coral became ground zero for the housing collapse. Prices fell by more than 50%. Foreclosure signs blanketed neighborhoods, and entire developments sat half-built and abandoned. Families lost their homes, and the city's reputation as a dream destination turned into a cautionary tale of overbuilding and overspeculation. Fast forward to today, and this history looms large. The scars of the last crash are still visible, and now, with prices falling again, sales slowing, and the city ranked last in housing demand, the fear is simple. Is Cape Coral about to relive its painful past? The echoes of 2008 are getting louder in Cape Coral, and the numbers coming out of 2025 paint a troubling picture. What was once one of America's hottest real estate markets has now earned the title of the worst housing market in the nation, and the warning signs are everywhere. Let's start with the price drop. According to recent reports, the median home price in Cape Coral has plunged to about $361,000, a sharp 7.7% decline in just the past year. Compare that to the national housing market, which actually saw modest growth of around 2%, and Cape Coral stands out as one of the few markets moving in the opposite direction. Some properties are seeing even steeper losses. One realtor told the Wall Street Journal about a home originally purchased for $675,000 with the intent to turn it into an Airbnb rental. After struggling to find buyers, the price was slashed down to $500,000. That's not just a loss of profit, that's a six-figure hit for the seller. It doesn't stop there. Homes are lingering on the market for an average of 76 days, up significantly from 59 days just a year ago. This might not sound like much, but in real estate, that's a red flag. A hot market means homes disappear in days. A stagnant market means buyers are cautious and sellers are desperate. Inventory is also flooding the market. In fact, there are now an estimated 12,000 homes currently for sale in Cape Coral. That's not a sign of healthy demand, it's a sign of oversupply. Too many houses, not enough buyers. And when supply outweighs demand, prices always fall. Even the number of sales has slowed. In May 2025, Cape Coral recorded 608 homes sold, down from 645 the year before. That's nearly a 6% drop in transactions. It doesn't sound catastrophic, but combined with falling prices and ballooning inventory, it shows buyers are stepping back. The housing data site Redfin and local outlets like Fox 4 Now have ranked Cape Coral dead last in national housing hotness charts for mid-sized cities. Out of 123 cities, Cape Coral came in at the bottom. That's a brutal shift for a place that once topped the charts for growth and investment potential. And the residents? Many are starting to panic. Some locals say they feel stuck with homes they can't sell, while others are watching their property values evaporate and wondering if they'll ever recover their investment. One resident told reporters, "The property tax and the flood insurance are going to go up so high in the next 5 years that it's not worth staying here." All of these warning signs, falling prices, sluggish sales, growing inventory, and rising costs, are combining to create a storm of uncertainty. And the scary part? This downturn isn't being driven by reckless lending or wild speculation like 2008. Instead, it's something more complex and potentially more lasting. Because when you look closely, Cape Coral's problems run deeper than just the numbers. They're tied to the very environment, economy, and sustainability of the city itself. If falling home prices and slow sales were the only problems, Cape Coral might still have a chance to bounce back. But the real crisis lies in the mounting costs of simply living here. The very paradise that drew thousands of people to Florida's west coast is now exacting a heavy price. And it comes in the form of hurricanes, floods, and skyrocketing insurance bills. Cape Coral is no stranger to storms, but the last few years have been brutal. Since 2022, major hurricanes have battered Florida's Gulf Coast year after year, leaving billions in damages. Hurricane Ian in 2022 was one of the most destructive in state history, flooding entire neighborhoods and crippling infrastructure. And while recovery efforts have poured billions into rebuilding, the scars remain, not just on homes, but on the insurance market. Here's the problem. Every time a storm hits, insurers reassess the risk. And in Cape Coral, that risk has become almost uninsurable. Homeowners have seen their flood insurance premiums double or even triple in just a few short years. In some cases, annual premiums that used to cost $2,000 are now soaring past $6,000 or more. Add in rising property taxes, and many families are asking themselves whether they can realistically afford to stay. One resident, originally from New Jersey, put it bluntly, "The property tax and the flood insurance are going to go up so high in the next 5 years that it's not worth staying here." That's a chilling statement, because if enough homeowners decide to cut their losses and sell, the market could sink even further. And it's not just about the money. Living under the constant threat of natural disasters takes an emotional toll. Residents describe the anxiety of evacuation warnings, the stress of watching storm forecasts, and the heartbreak of repairing the same home over and over again. Cape Coral, once seen as a safe bet for retirees looking for peace, is now being viewed as a gamble with Mother Nature. Investors are noticing too. Short-term rental owners who once banked on Airbnb profits are now second-guessing their decisions. Many of those properties are flooding the market at discounted prices, adding to the oversupply problem we saw earlier. What we're seeing here is the cost of paradise. For decades, the selling point of Cape Coral was affordability combined with Florida's lifestyle. But today, that equation has flipped. Rising costs, natural risks, and falling home values mean that Cape Coral is quickly losing its appeal, especially when compared to inland cities that aren't as exposed to hurricanes and flooding. This combination, falling demand, surging costs, and environmental vulnerability, is what makes this downturn so different from the 2008 collapse. Back then, reckless lending and speculation were the culprits. Today, it's the physical and financial reality of living in Florida's most vulnerable markets. And that reality is forcing many locals to face an uncomfortable question. If Cape Coral can't survive the storms, both literal and financial, what does the future of the city look like? Numbers can tell us a lot about Cape Coral's housing market, but they don't capture the real weight of what's happening here. To understand the full picture, we need to step into the shoes of the people who are actually living through this collapse. The homeowners, renters, retirees, and families caught in the storm. Take, for example, Linda Martinez, a retired nurse who moved from Illinois to Cape Coral in 2019. At first, it seemed like a dream come true. Warm weather, a house on the canal, and a chance to finally slow down. But after Hurricane Ian, her flood insurance skyrocketed from $2,400 to nearly $7,000 per year. Combined with property taxes, her monthly costs rose by almost 40%. "I thought I had planned everything perfectly for retirement," she says. "But now I lie awake at night wondering if I'll be forced to sell and move back north." Linda's story isn't unique. It's becoming the norm. Then there's Jake and Samantha Turner, a young couple with 2 kids who bought their first home in 2022 at the height of the market. They stretched their budget to lock in a property, paying $410,000 for a 3-bedroom home. Fast forward to 2025, and comparable homes in their neighborhood are now selling for closer to $360,000, nearly a 12% drop in value. Jake explains, "We're underwater. We owe more on this house than it's worth. Selling isn't an option, but staying feels like we're trapped." Rising insurance premiums only deepen the strain. For young families like the Turners, the American dream of homeownership has quickly become a financial nightmare. Local realtors are also feeling the pressure. Karen Holmes, a Cape Coral agent with 15 years of experience, says the market shift is unlike anything she's seen since 2008. Back then, it was the banks and bad loans that sank us. Now it's costs and confidence. Buyers don't want to touch Cape Coral unless they're getting a serious discount. And sellers are panicking, slashing prices just to attract offers. According to her, open houses that used to attract crowds of eager buyers are now drawing just a trickle of cautious visitors. Even renters are not immune. With landlords passing on insurance hikes, monthly rents in some neighborhoods have jumped by 20 to 30% since 2022. For working-class families who thought renting would be the safer option, this sudden squeeze has left them scrambling. One renter, Marcus Green, put it bluntly, "I moved here thinking it was affordable. Now I'm paying more rent than I did in Miami. If things keep going like this, I'll have to leave." The psychological toll is also worth noting. Conversations around Cape Coral have shifted from excitement about growth to anxiety about decline. Grocery store chatter, church gatherings, and neighborhood barbecues now revolve around insurance bills, market crashes, and whether to get out while you still can. That creeping sense of uncertainty is powerful. Once people start losing confidence, a downturn can snowball into a full-blown collapse. What ties all these stories together is a sense of disillusionment. Cape Coral was supposed to be a safe haven, an affordable slice of paradise. Instead, it's becoming a cautionary tale of how quickly the dream can unravel when economic, environmental, and social pressures collide. And it's here, in these everyday struggles, that the true risk of Cape Coral's housing market becomes clear. This isn't just about falling prices on a spreadsheet. It's about families questioning their future, retirees fearing financial ruin, and a community wondering whether it can weather the storms ahead. Florida has always been a magnet for home buyers, retirees chasing the sun, investors looking for short-term rental opportunities, and families hoping for a more affordable lifestyle. But here's the truth. While the entire state is feeling the weight of rising insurance costs, economic uncertainty, and slowing demand, not every Florida city is collapsing at the same rate as Cape Coral. Let's start with the numbers. According to Cotality's 2025 Markets to Watch list, several Florida metros, including Lakeland, Northport, St. Petersburg, and West Palm Beach, have been flagged as high-risk markets. Each of these cities has seen home prices cool off and inventory climb. But when you line them up side by side, Cape Coral's situation looks much more severe. In Lakeland, for example, prices have dipped, but the decline has been relatively modest. Strong commuter ties to Orlando and Tampa keep demand steady, and local wages better align with home values. Similarly, St. Petersburg, while expensive, benefits from a robust job market tied to tourism, tech, and healthcare, industries that soften the blow when housing costs rise. Even West Palm Beach, with its high luxury concentration, has a deeper pool of wealthy buyers who can weather storms like insurance hikes. Cape Coral, by contrast, doesn't have the same economic diversity to fall back on. Much of the city's housing boom was built on migration and speculation. Retirees seeking second homes, investors chasing short-term rental profits, and families drawn by the promise of affordability. But, as we saw in Section 4, those promises are unraveling. When you strip away the influx of new residents and easy investor money, Cape Coral's underlying economy looks more fragile. The data highlights this stark reality. Redfin reported that as of May 2025, Cape Coral home prices had fallen 7.7% year over year, compared to the national growth rate of plus 1.7%. Homes are sitting on the market for 76 days on average, significantly longer than Florida's other metros. And perhaps most damning, Fox 4 Now ranked Cape Coral last out of 123 mid-sized U.S. cities in its July 2025 Hotness Index, which measures buyer activity. None of the other Florida hotspots ranked nearly as poorly. Another difference is the severity of the insurance crisis. While all of Florida is dealing with soaring premiums, up an average of 70% since 2020, Cape Coral's geography makes it one of the most exposed. With more than 400 miles of canals, a low-lying coastal layout, and direct hurricane impacts in recent years, Cape Coral homeowners are facing some of the steepest insurance bills in the state. This is a burden Lakeland or inland markets don't shoulder nearly as heavily. And then there's inventory. Cape Coral currently has more than 12,000 homes listed for sale, a glut of supply that dwarfs other nearby markets. Compare that to Northport, which has also seen a slowdown but hasn't reached the same level of oversupply. In Cape Coral, this imbalance between supply and demand is one of the clearest warning signs of deeper trouble. Put simply, while Florida as a whole is navigating a challenging housing landscape, Cape Coral is ground zero. Its dependence on migration and speculation, its overexposure to climate risks, and its lack of strong economic foundations make it stand out as the most fragile of Florida's housing markets. This comparison matters because it strips away the idea that Cape Coral's troubles are just part of a national or statewide trend. They're not. The state may be facing headwinds, but Cape Coral is facing a full-blown storm. As we close the chapter on Cape Coral's unfolding housing crisis, one truth becomes painfully clear. This isn't just a Florida story. It's a warning for the rest of America. What happened in Cape Coral, skyrocketing demand, unchecked construction, speculative buying, and then a crushing wave of foreclosures, could play out in any city where rapid growth collides with fragile economic foundations. The numbers are staggering. In just over a year, median home prices in Cape Coral fell by more than 20%, while foreclosure filings shot up by nearly 60%. Homes that once sold in days now sit untouched for months. Thousands of families who dreamed of a Florida paradise are now watching that dream dissolve into debt, eviction notices, and uncertainty. But beneath the statistics lies something deeper: the emotional toll. The families who poured their life savings into a piece of paradise only to watch it slip away. The retirees who moved for sunshine and safety but now find themselves trapped in homes worth far less than they paid. And the local businesses, restaurants, shops, contractors that depend on a healthy housing market, now struggling to survive in a city frozen by fear. Cape Coral is a stark reminder that housing bubbles don't burst quietly. They explode, leaving financial wreckage and human heartbreak in their wake. And while the experts debate interest rates and construction trends, it's the everyday people, the teachers, nurses, retirees, me, and small business owners who pay the highest price. So the question is this: will policymakers learn from Cape Coral before the next housing bubble pops somewhere else? Or will we continue the cycle of speculation, denial, and collapse that has defined too many American housing markets? One thing is certain: Cape Coral has become the face of a housing crisis that is both local and national. And for residents of this once booming Florida town, the road to recovery will be long, uncertain, and painfully human. Because at the end of the day, this story isn't just about property values or market charts, it's about people. And the people of Cape Coral are living through a harsh lesson America cannot afford to ignore.